Hey everyone, Adrian Groenewald here, Mere Vision, where it's all about improvement of self, others, organization, and society. That's leadership. When leaders, that's what they do. They improve themselves, they improve others, they improve their organizations, they improve society. And we're also about mobilizing a specific type of leader. We call them sharers. It's leaders who share improvement. They don't just improve, they actually share it so that we can multiply that power. As we're about this global improvement revolution to counter decline, we ask a very important question that we think our community of leaders would appreciate, and that is AI on a course of improving our world or, in fact, aiding the decline, ironically? Also, what kind of leaders do we need in these artificial intelligence times? I've got with me Wocke. He's foremost AI expert and entrepreneur, CEO of Merlynn, and a smart man that I got to know recently said that he is one of the smartest people he knows. So I think Carl will dispute that maybe. But what I'm trying to say to you is we've got a smart person here who understands leadership, but certainly understands AI. Carl Wocke, welcome. And how long have you been in the AI space?
Thanks, Adrian. I'm 58 now. I started my AI journey before the turn of the century. I often joke in the early days, I was the youngest in the room, and now I'm pretty much the oldest in the room. So my journey of AI started, a good 25, 26 odd years ago.
That's in the AI world, that's a long time, but also short. I don't know, it's kind of both. Carl, just to start off with, before we get into the detail, is what you envisioned AI to be a quarter of a century ago and what it has become and is becoming. Is that the same thing?
Well, certainly not for me. I set out to build AI that clones human expertise. So the traditional approach in AI is to understand data better, learn from data. So certainly my journey was a long journey. I believed we would reach a point where there's need for human expertise, human judgment, the human-centric type sentiments within, the automation around us. So I always believed that moment would come. And I think over the last 2 years, when one looks at the ChatGPTs of the world, I think ChatGPT landed here in 2022, November odd. The need for human in the loop, human thinking, our version of AI has certainly arrived. So I best describe myself as an AI cynic. I've seen the AI evolve over the years. So quite cynical. I suppose the question is, am I surprised at where we are? Some things surprise me, in terms of the speed, the exponential development around the technologies. I think the trust around the technologies, the initial trust surprised me. What doesn't surprise me is where we are now, which is more the cynical take, sorry, in terms of the AI. So there's edges, to the good and bad of where we are in terms of AI now.
Just where are we at with AI? Are we at a place where someone who really knows how to work AI, can they make it seem like reality? Can they fake news? Can they fake reality with AI now? Or are we close to that? Because I think that has a strong bearing on the kind of leaders we need. Will lead to that. I mean, I think of a lot of cynical people who say there wasn't a real moon landing. Can one now fake a moon landing or a Mars landing? And I'm not saying he will or he's thinking about it. Can Elon Musk actually in time say, well, we've landed on Mars, but we haven't. But AI is making us believe, are we in that place now?
So I think the challenge is that we don't have any trust anymore. So AI has removed the ability for us to trust things, which really speaks to the leadership theme. And that's why I was, quite excited to be on this podcast and this discussion. Around us, my wife believes that the moon landing is fake. I believe that it's real. And we both, can make an argument for it. So my view is we've now reached a point where, it's difficult to find things that anchor us together in terms of things that we believe. So the only way, you and I can really build a strong association is if we believe the same thing. And if that's been removed by technologies like AI, then we start to challenge everything around us. We work in law enforcement, and I was in an interesting meeting the other day where one of the top kidnapping organizations spoke to us and said, well, proof of life is a critical element to the whole hostage negotiation. How do we now agree proof of life? And that's a challenge. The meeting ended where everyone vigorously agreed that video is no longer evidence of proof of life. So, all around us, all the traditional sources of things that one can believe, be it media, be it print, be it video, all of those have been challenged, be it voice. We're involved in a thing called pig butchering, which is the biggest crime type in the world at the moment. And that's really where people steal from others using crypto type technologies, social media type scams, the romance scams. And all of these are made possible through AI. So, you absolutely are now starved for believable truths.
Okay, and we could argue that a quality leader will bring that believable truth and trust. I mean, you take trust out of leadership. We don't have trust of any political leaders these days. People continue voting, but voting numbers are less because there's less trust. Politicians lie anyway. They don't do what they say they're going to do, but they get into positions of power. Now there's less trust. So trust is going down, yet the importance of leadership on the scale is going up. So that deficit, that gap is getting bigger and bigger. That is fatal.
There's never been, in my mind, a more important moment for strong leadership across all industries. Every part of our lives needs strong leadership. And the simple truth for me is that there's a beacon that is needed. So someone who's able to consolidate all the potential falsehoods, bring the vision. You need to focus on that, particular, the vision that the leader brings as your truth. Because, as I said, you can test this. I can search the internet and find that carrots give me cancer, or carrots are great for me, can solve cancer. So there's no believable truth anymore. The only real believable truth for me would be within the relationships, the trust that now needs to be rebuilt. And that then brings the argument around the strong need that is now surfacing, to your point, it's growing around, strong leadership.
Cole, so let me just quickly sketch a scenario. I've got leader A who puts, and let's assume that on a certain level, if you certainly listen to the Elon Musk of life and so on, they describe Grok 4 that just came out, how it is definitely smarter than any human and what kind of tests it can pass, and in every subject matter, it is smarter than humans. So I'm a CEO, a leader, and I put AI at the forefront of my leadership. It helps me draw up great positioning statements. It gives me ideas on how to handle certain situations. It becomes like a trusted partner for me. I literally put AI at the forefront of my leadership. Could I be a good leader then, or am I in trouble if I do that?
I think you're in trouble because everyone else is doing the same. So all that's happened is the bar has been lifted. So access to Gen AI means you can build great looking presentations, but so can I. So I don't see AI as the differentiator in leadership. The people around you have got access to the same technologies. I think what one needs to focus on is the people aspects, the areas around empathy, fairness of business. I believe that the future business landscape is going to be defined by the fairness of trade. I made a profit off a customer, but was that right? Was it good for the customer? All things like that AI is going to be or struggles with. So I certainly don't think that leaders should be hiding behind AI. I think that leaders should be using AI, but still, being the primary source of that leadership. For you to use AI as a tool to generate content and, generate referenceable material, I think is great. And you have to be doing that because your competitors are. But what sets you aside is going to be the humanistic side. So I did a talk probably 7, 8 years ago where I facetiously said that the future call centers, the current call centers, all chatbots and all of those things. But in the not too distant future, I think a corporate's going to stand up and say, with us, you're dealing with people. So I see a pendulum swing back to the people side. So I do think that, leaders specifically now, be very, very careful that you're not, super impressed and excited about the capabilities of AI, and forget what your real role is. Your real role is to actually be that beacon in this world of absolute uncertainty.
There was a time when we thought IT was the be all and end all. IT is taking over businesses. IT is the business. And even maybe the turn of the century before that. And I think soon we learned that no, IT was an important structure that serves the vision and the mission and the purpose and the people, and helping the people run businesses better and better. So leaders, seems like they got it right to put IT in its rightful place. That's where your place is, IT. You do not control our business, that sort of thing. Now, is that what we're expecting of leaders to do now with something that is much more impressive, maybe, is to put AI in its rightful place? And it takes a huge amount of maturity to take something that is more intelligent than you, in terms of knowledge, and put it in its rightful place. Is that kind of also what we're looking for?
Yeah, I think I would caution saying that AI is more intelligent than you in terms of recall and, a couple of key functions in mimicking. I get it. So that's a whole discussion on its own in terms of intelligence. I think you need to view AI as entry level. That's important. So be careful of being hyper impressed by AI. It's entry level now. You have to be using the generative capabilities. You have to be generating ideas out of AI. It's a source for content for you. It's a perspective. So it's an additional perspective that one would consume, in your journey. But it's not something that's going to be impressing everyone around you as something unique. Everyone's got it. Algorithms are the price of a hamburger at the moment. So I certainly would be very, very careful to be yourself super impressed by AI, thinking that you've got a competitive edge. AI is not going to remove the role of leadership. I think it's going to enhance the role of leadership, but it needs to play a role as a utility, as a contributor, as a sounding board, as a generator of ideas. So when I do a presentation, I will go to something, like a ChatGPT or Notebook LM, and I would say, well, give me some ideas. This is my previous content. Give me some ideas. How can I change this? I still need to consider those ideas and validate them or not. So to give away your role as a leader, which I'm not suggesting you're saying, but to give away that key component of leadership is disastrous, I think. And also when one considers what I was saying earlier around what the future business landscape is going to be in the human-centric sides of business, fairness, ethical trade, etc. These are all going through compliance, regulations at the moment. So those are things where you are going to be differentiated. So when I get to look at a lot of businesses in my role, and when one looks at a business, you've got to look at what are the things that are going to differentiate you. To your point, Adrian, you said everyone became an IT company, which is what I've spoken about years ago as well. Everyone became an IT company. Now everyone is going to become an AI-enabled company. How are you going to differentiate? My view is that people are going to differentiate you. The way you think about business, the way you respond in business is going to differentiate you. The people side, not your automation or the technologies you deploy. That's not competitive anymore.
Yeah. A wise man told me one day that every human being is different, unique, and complex. He called it the duck principle. Different, unique, and complex. And if a leader taps into that, then it's a much greater intelligence that exists. But But your call for this kind of prioritization of where AI should fit in and so on, do you think it's too late? Have we passed the point of no return where we're already there where leaders are dabbling with it so much that they're into it, they're immersed in it, and they cannot get out of it? Or are we at a good place to still do that, to get leaders to see what you're saying and what I agree with? That it's about the people. It's not about this impressive AI that is not a human, even if it's a robot eventually.
Yeah, I think we're only getting started. We're heading for massive instability. And where there's instability, there's opportunity. It just depends on what side of the table you're going to end up sitting. So I think we're only getting started. I think the opportunities are around injecting human in the loop thinking into your AI. What is human in the loop? You can Google, your listeners can Google that. Human in the loop is really where you insert human judgment, human sentiment into automation. So where everyone is into automation. So your listeners and viewers, their corporations would be deeply invested into automation. The next step in AI is to bring human in the loop thinking into the automation. And what that means is you're going to start bringing human judgment, which will bring things like fairness, ethics, better risk management, better compliance management into the automation. So in terms of, is it too late? Absolutely not too late. What you've got to consider is a brand new technology landed in 2022. It wasn't that new, but it was democratized, I suppose, is one way of looking at it, in November 2022. Everyone around you is racing to find out, what does this mean? How can I be competitive? In reality, what I would do is I would look at what the next evolution of this technology will be, and that's going to be the people side. The simple question is, how do you differentiate? Not by AI. You're going to differentiate leadership, your people. What do you do when things go off script? How do I bring my best people into my automation? So I would be focusing on what happens next. Take a view on what happens next. Certainly everyone has got access to the same technology that is exciting you at the moment. That's not differentiation. That's moving the game, but everyone else has moved the game by tomorrow as well.
Before we close off the last few minutes on the leadership side as well, you've given some incredible tips, I must say, and I want us to dig a little bit deeper, but just, are we moving in a direction where there's going to be a lot of loss of employment across the world? I've heard people talk about, what is this universal basic income model where you're going to walk into a McDonald's and robots are going to serve you, and people will lose jobs, and then they'll start some kind of global basic income thing where, like the dole system in the UK, just pay people so they can stay alive, but robots and AI are taking over. Job losses, is that it's already happening? Are we going to create more jobs through AI, or are we going to lose more jobs?
So I think the economy is going to contract. I think that anything that can be thought, any job role that involves thinking, your white collar type environments, people are going to challenge those functions and try and replace them. And that's going to lead to contraction. So I think in the short to medium term, the outlook is, certainly it's an opinion from my side. I'm very, very concerned about the outlook. We are seeing the tech industry hemorrhaging jobs in North America. I mean, it's hundreds of thousands of tech workers, developers, people that are in the industry that are losing their jobs. And I think we're going to go over the cliff on this. I think and that's the short to medium term. I think are we going to have some kind of universal income type model? I just don't see that. Maybe I'm being cynical on this. If you're not relevant to an organization, you're not going to be earning from that organization. So I just don't see that. If I'm pulled out of an industry, out of the economy, how am I going to be buying TVs and fridges and things like that? I can't. I just don't have the economic might. So mathematically, it doesn't stack up for me. Where does this value come from? So I am very, very concerned. I think we need to focus more on keeping people relevant, in a process. And that's why the merging of people and AI is an opportunity. I think it's an opportunity not to lose your people, but to merge and use AI to collaborate with the expertise of your people. I think those are huge opportunities. And to my earlier point, I think the true opportunity out there is to understand, this devastating change and understand what happens next. And that's going to be where the opportunity lies.
Okay, we're already at a place, I'm guessing, where inside, if a CEO or a leader does not realize that their people are using AI to draw up memos or to put together business plans or anything almost for that matter, then he or she would be very ignorant. Am I right when I say that? I mean, it came so fast and everyone is using it, pulling things through it. Before I send an email, maybe let me quickly just draw up this perfectly worded email. And therefore, are we already in a place where someone who knows how to use AI, but everything they send and discuss and position is theirs, that such a person, leader, is going to already stand out as authentic as opposed to sort of an AI leader, an AI infiltrated leader? If you think we're there, or do you just think people who are very close to AI like yourself will see it?
So Adrian, expect a backlash. If someone you can feel the backlash around you now. So if someone generates content and I see it as being Gen AI, I get agitated. So immediately. So what are we already doing? And your viewers and listeners will acknowledge this. You're already looking at ways to mask that this has been created by AI. We're already doing it. So, don't put dashes and don't do certain constructs and don't put certain logic, within your sentences. We're doing it. So we're starting to move back towards people generated. So if you generate a proposal to me that's been AI generated and I see that that's AI generated, I'm gone. I'm not invested in the relationship. So that's a huge opportunity. So I think the natural resting place or space for AI, to your earlier suggestion, is still to be felt. We can understand where AI should fit. But, myself, I've been in AI all my useful life. When I see something generated, by AI and not by the actual person that I've been engaging with, I'm irritated. So we can look out for that. And that's also one of the opportunities.
But it's true. I mean, can you not sometimes look past that irritation and say, well, actually, this is damn true. This is a really good idea, even though it didn't come from you, Adrian. It obviously came from AI. How much of it is yours and how much is AI? A frank conversation about it and saying, listen, my friend, I didn't employ you to bring AI to me, but let's talk about this idea. I don't know if I'm making sense, but
the challenge is that if you generate content and you have no depth of thought around that content, you can't support it. So it's like saying to me, here's an F1 engine and all the blueprints and everything. And then I come back to you and say, all right, let's build it. And you go, well, I can't.
Yeah.
You can, the statement for me is I can agree Gen AI content, but I don't believe it. It's not mine.
Yeah.
So if I agree that that's the blueprint for an F1 engine, that's easy. But I didn't come up with it. There's nothing innovative. I'm not able to further anything that's within the content. So an example would be, practical example, let's say you're selling something to a customer and, someone within your organization generates a proposal and it's got fantastic steps in it and, stuff that we've never thought before. If the customer signs that proposal, you're now sitting with very little depth. You're now going to have to support and supply a product that has got components and processes within a project that you've never dealt with before. So it can look good, at the surface, but if someone says, yes, let's buy it, you're not going to be able to deliver on it because you didn't create it. Same thing if I had to say to you, here's a document on leadership, and you look at it and go, but this is brilliant. And then we have a discussion and I come across as a novice in the space. That's the problem. If you didn't make it, you can't support it.
You can call Wocke, who's a leader, I believe a great leader, but not in the leadership space in terms of consulting and that sort of thing. You could now go and generate a really impressive leadership article, and not really understand it or believe it fully, and send it to me, and I can say, wow, that's a brilliant article. Let's have an interview now. You get on, you're just not going to come across as convincing and authentic and passionate enough about it. You'll have to go study it up yourself before the interview.
Well, Adrian, you're going to say, well, Cole, you mentioned the following part of this document. Can we explore that more? And I'm going to leave the interview and get some coffee.
Yeah. Cole, I am concerned about something as we draw to a close, and maybe we can also end with you giving leaders strong advice on how to elevate leadership, put AI in its rightful place, and we can talk about attributes needed: trust, people, empathy, all those kind of emotional intelligence type qualities are becoming more and more important, it seems. But leaders today, before AI, I felt that the world is already too complex for leaders. The world is too integrated, too interconnected, too challenging for the level of emotional, spiritual, social intelligence that leaders possess. Our schooling systems are not good enough at preparing them. Our family units are deteriorating, which is a basic unit of society that teaches you interpersonal skills and human skills. So then already, before AI, I would say I can see leaders faltering everywhere. How many of us know the president of a nation that really impresses us? We look at a CEO of $1 billion company who ends up at a concert, and there he is. He's been lying to his people. He's been fake in many ways, and so has the chief people officer. These are the people that how many thousands of people looked up to. So that's the kind of moral depth and maturity, perhaps, that we have in this world. We look at the kind of things that are being debated, the Epstein stuff, all over the world and America, the superficiality of our morality and our intelligence, in a way. So now we bring AI into this that can take over. Okay, and I'm concerned that we weren't ready for it. The world before AI, we're not ready for it now. Your thoughts on that?
So, my earlier statement was that leadership has never been more important, simply because we've never lived in this moment of uncertainty, or this level of uncertainty. So leadership is critical. I wish I was a sort of, at your level in terms of leadership understanding. But my view, when I sort of guide my business, I've got to make the tough decisions. I've got to take a view on things based on what I see around me, and then people follow. So I think leadership is about managing the uncertainty. I think to ever suggest that AI can play a role of leadership is madness. I just cannot see. If you take a philosophical view on leadership, leaders are taking you in a direction where there is uncertainty. Data sciences and AI doesn't run on uncertainty. It needs data. It needs to learn from historical events. Leadership is not about going somewhere where I've necessarily been before. So there's a conflict there. So I think the role of leadership is massively amplified for very, very many reasons. I think technologies like AI should be used to make leadership, should be used to support leadership and make leadership simpler. And the reason I say that is, if I've got to make a judgment call around pivoting a business or choosing a certain direction or market, I can use technologies like AI to build perspectives, to build inputs, to build views. But there's no way that I'm going to say to the AI, I need to make a decision around entering the North American market. What do you think I should do? And tell me why. And then, take that as the truth. I think that's dangerous. I think positioning AI as a supporter, as a content generator for these decisions is critical. But I don't see leadership ever disappearing for that simple reason: uncertainty. Leadership is about uncertainty. AI doesn't like uncertainty.
Yeah, thank you, Cole, so much. I am worried. You know, the moment a leader, because you can become very senior leader without being absolutely clear about who you are, but simply because you're intelligent, you had a good engineering degree, and life worked out for you. So now you're sitting in an executive position, and you start using AI for certain reasons, and before you know it, it just kind of sucks you in. Partly because you haven't really been faced with opposition about who am I really, about my values, about my moral compass, about all those things. My life has been very much about intellect, you know. So now here comes a thing that requires me to build trust and to know who I am and to know what my values are and to know the depth of people and how special people are. So if I start doing even what you suggest with AI, before I blink, I could just be sucked into that world where I'm not promoting the kind of leadership that you're proposing and that I endorse. Am I valid in my concern? I don't hold up a lot of hope for this. I mean, let me not say that I don't trust all leaders or I'm totally hopeless when it comes to great leaders. There are fantastic leaders out there, but I hope we have the collective strength to do what you're proposing. I don't know that we do.
Yeah, I think, I've got a number of kids, and I often talk to them about a thing called imposter syndrome. And I think leaders who are going into the unknown, I mean, as a leader, you're taking your team into something that hasn't yet materialized. I mean, that's certainly in our world, that's sort of one of the focus areas. And I think with imposter syndrome, you've got to acknowledge that you're unsure and to give away the uncertainty to AI so that you're no longer uncomfortable and unsure is the line you don't want to cross. As a leader, you must be unsure. And I think to actually acknowledge that you are unsure about things and that, you're not sure that the direction you're taking the business is necessarily the correct, position or the correct direction. I think to use AI to remove that uncertainty is extremely dangerous. And that's where you give away the role of leadership. I think if a leader, and again, I'm a weekend warrior on the leadership side, I think if a leader was to live in a world of total certainty, living in a world of total certainty removes opportunity. That's a deeply philosophical view. But where there's not uncertainty, there's no opportunity to differentiate. So again, just to reinforce, we spoke about it earlier, AI should not be used to remove the uncertainty. It should be used as a mechanism to support the leadership decisions that you've got to make.
Would you say that is your final golden guideline to leaders to make sure that they use AI in the correct manner?
Absolutely. And it's about positioning. So, AI should be subservient to your leadership. The day that those roles are switched, then you're lost. I think one of the critical differentiators in a business is leadership. I mean, there are enough examples around us. Great leaders make great businesses. AI is not going to suddenly make a great business by replacing leadership. That's, as I said, an absolutely bizarre suggestion. I think the romance around AI, the fascination around AI, look what I can do kind of statements around AI, be careful of that. Not special anymore. Anyone can do that. And the biggest risk is for leaders to think that, the new things that you can do with AI are able to differentiate your business. It's entry level now. Maybe 2 points. One, I firmly believe this: leadership has never been more important. The second is AI and these cool technologies are being used by your competitors in the market. It's not a differentiator on its own anymore.
Maybe a final comment from me, and you're welcome to end it off then, is I if I have to ask 10 people randomly, do you think the world is on a decline overall more than it is on an improvement scale, upward trend? Most people would say, well, collectively speaking, it's on a decline. Okay. In South Africa, you can see the potholes, you can see this, you can see lots of visibility of that, but all over the world, morality and all sorts of things. So leadership hasn't done too damn well up to this point, collectively speaking. There are pockets of excellence in bringing us to where we are now. And now you and I, you are calling for leaders to step up, and guess what, leadership is more important than ever before. You haven't stepped up so well in the past, and now in the midst of all of this, you need to step up further. So it's a tall order, it's a big step up, it's a big leap, maybe even, but maybe that's when leadership rises, isn't it? Is when they need to step up, when things are really tough and dangerous. Then somehow leaders come out of the woodwork and they make things happen. So those are just some final thoughts from my side. I don't know if you want to just close it off with more wisdom.
I wish. So I think, and certainly this is what I talk to my board about. I'm there as a CEO of my business. I'm there for the difficult decisions. And I think the, failed leadership hasn't put us here. I don't think that, everything around us has led to us being here, from the attitude of employees to the employer to the leaders, has everything together has placed us here. So I think the role of the leader in the future is actually going to be around acknowledging the uncertainty around us and stepping up to bring certainty, even if the direction or the decisions that are made are wrong. And some of them obviously will be, but just for someone to play the role of, I believe the moon landing did happen, and this is why, and people, let's move forward. I think that cannot be overemphasized. The role of leadership actually being, amplified as we go through this uncertainty. Are we in a worse place? Are we on a downward trajectory? I think we are. Hopefully, I don't know, what the spiral or dive looks like at the end. So I certainly think we are. I do think that sanity has to eventually prevail. And again, that speaks to when that moment arrives, that you as a leader need to suggest, what it looks like. When that moment arrives and things turn, what are the opportunities? But I do think we're in a sort of an advanced dive because of AI, because of uncertainty. The world, leadership for me, you can only lead me if I believe in the same thing you believe. And I'm not talking necessarily just at a business organization level. I'm talking about at a country level. There is no leadership because we can't agree the same things. We can't rally around the same things. And so I do think we are spiraling downwards, but there will be a moment where we can somehow start to agree the same, and then leadership will again be amplified.
Carl Wocke, thank you so much. And so we need leadership more than ever before. Leaders we can trust, leaders who believe and make us believe and help us believe in the same future, the same vision, the same product, service. Leaders that are real, and it's a great opportunity, isn't it, for individuals to say, well, hold on, let me step back and find myself and be a real person. I will then stand out. I'll be a special leader. So really appreciate it. Carl Wocke, foremost AI expert and entrepreneur, leader above all, I think, and CEO of Merlynn. Thank you for your time, and thank you for letting us think about this important topic. We could probably dig much deeper, but I like the fact that we didn't just elevate AI, we elevated leadership, and that's what we need to do in this world of ours. Thank you for your time.
Thanks, Adrian. It's been a pleasure.